Traditionally, the field of psychology has focused on negative emotions. For example, at the end of this semester, we will have a whole lecture on mental illness. There is no lecture on mental wellness. What is going on with that? In the last 20 years, that has started to shift. There's a new field called positive psychology that studies happiness, how we can be our best selves. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about positive affect or positive emotions. Now, any positive emotion can be felt in a really intense, high arousal way. So you can be really excited about something or just ecstatic with happiness. You can also experience positive emotions in a very low arousal way. So imagine contentment. You never see somebody screaming in excitement because they're contented. You might see them walk around with a big smile on their face, but that's different. It turns out that positive emotions have really significant benefits, not just psychologically, but physically too. Let me talk to you about some of those. People who spend more time feeling positive emotions live longer, have less disease, have stronger immune systems. They eat healthier diets. Older people who are happy have less frailty. Younger people who are happy are less likely to be injured. Happy people have more friends. They experience less pain, even if they have a chronically painful disease like arthritis. They don't worry as much, they're not as anxious, and they're much more productive. Where's the problem, right? It's like, wow, who wouldn't want to be friends with somebody who was in a good mood? What is it that happiness does? How could this be? Well, it turns out that positive and negative emotions seem to have different impacts on the body and on the psyche. When we're in a negative emotion, say anger or fear, it's as if our window of the possible things that we can do in the world, as if it like shrinks. So for example, I live in Los Angeles, and it seems like every other night, if you're watching the local news in Los Angeles, it breaks because some idiot is afraid and they're driving all around the freeways of Los Angeles trying to outrun police officers, which they almost never do, right? So yes, you probably didn't want to get a ticket because you have a broken tail light or you forgot your driver's license. But of course, you're only making things worse by getting in the car and driving all over LA and back. The reason people do that, and everybody scratches their head, like, how could you be so stupid? The reason is when we're experiencing negative emotions, we sort of have knee-jerk reactions to how to respond to stimuli. So if I'm in a bad mood and I see a police officer, my first thought might be, run. Positive moods have a very different effect. Instead of narrowing the range of options, positive emotions have a way of broadening our understanding of our possible reactions to things. If you're in a really good mood and something bad happens, you could say, oh, that's a bummer, but I had all these other good things happen. Or, the cops got me. Oh, well, I guess I'll just go through this. Right? The responses are different. You can think more openly about your options and see the big picture. And Barb Fredrickson proposed an idea that's gotten a lot of traction in which she describes positive affect or positive emotions as broadening and building. And here's a cartoon of her model. The idea is when people are in a good mood, right, positive affect, they can have new and interesting thoughts. They can go out and do new things. Like if you're in a good mood and your friends say, oh, we're going to have surfing lessons. You want to come? You think you're in a good mood? Sure, why not? If you're in a bad mood when they ask you, you're feeling sad or angry, it's like, no, I don't want to go with you. But if you're feeling happy, like, sure, let's give it a shot. So you try new things, you connect with new people. Okay. And what does that give you? Well, by trying new things and connecting with new people, you are building a stronger emotional toolbox or a stronger set of possibilities or ways to manage the bad times. So, for example, Right now, during COVID, people are losing their jobs. Really difficult time. Rates of mental illness are increasing a lot. But people who were happy before COVID, maybe they knew how to do multiple things, so it's easier for them to get a job during COVID. Maybe they know more people, so more folks can help them with resources and money and food. So it's as if your psychological toolbox is enlarged by being happy. And as a result of that, people who are happy most of the time have this bigger toolbox. So they have enhanced health, they have more friends. It's like falling dominoes. One thing leads to another thing, and each step improves your well-being. If positive affect, things like happiness and joy, are so wonderful, then why didn't we evolve to be happy all of the time? Well, there are a few reasons. One is called the hedonic treadmill. No matter how happy you are now or how much stuff you have in your life, people always want more. We adapt very quickly to whatever our baseline is. So the old saying is, the more you have, the more you want. That's a hedonic treadmill. So you may be happy, but you have this tendency to always want more. So that keeps us from being happy. People who can accept, have gratitude for what they have, they can get off of that treadmill. We also tend to make upward social comparisons rather than downward social comparisons. So you might be feeling great, but then you see a brand new car go by and you think, oh, that person has this new fancy car and I don't have one. What we tend not to do is say, oh, I'm in a good mood, and someone drives by in a car that breaks down. You don't think, wow, how lucky am I to have a car that's reliable? So we have that bias to make upward comparisons, but not downward comparisons. And we also have this weird asymmetry about emotions. If I give you, in a surprise, if I give you $50, you'll feel happy. If I take $50 from you, you'll feel more sad than the equivalent amount of happiness that you gained by being given $50. There's an imbalance there. Things make us sadder than they make us happy. There's that saying, money can't buy happiness. Well, can it? Turns out the answer is a little more complicated. In the wise words of Nobel laureate Danny Kahneman, money does not buy you happiness, but a lack of money certainly buys you misery. So it turns out that people who have a very low income do become more happy as they get more money. No doubt about it, right? It's a very strong effect. And it makes sense, right? If you don't have enough money to make sure you can pay the rent, or enough money to buy enough food, or make sure your children have clothes or whatever they need for school, that's sad. And as you get more money, it changes your life dramatically in ways that make you happier. So for low income people, money does buy happiness. The higher your income, the less likely it is that money can buy you happiness. So for example, on this chart, which shows a general curve across multiple studies of the relationship between income on the bottom and happiness on the vertical axis, you see this curve. At the bottom, you see a sharp increase in happiness with income. And I've taken that little horizontal bar, which is the increase in income, and I've shifted it over to high income areas. And if you just shift that bar up, to see what the difference is in happiness between somebody at the low end of that bar and the high end of that bar, very little increase in happiness. So the more wealthy you are, the less you'll find that money can bring you happiness. What makes us happy? Well, Dan Gilbert has a book called This Emotional Life, and he talks about 3 aspects of happiness that I think really boil it down. I'd put them in a different order though. So let me go backwards. You can be happier in the future than you are right now. There are things that you can do to become more happy. You can't be happy all the time though. And you can't be happy alone. Why do we know this? Well, there's a lot of research that shows that being married, happily married, has a big impact on happiness. So let's look at the chart on the bottom right-hand corner. And this is a chart of rates of depression. And on the far right, you can see that married people have a rate of depression of 1.5%. Let's compare that to people who've been divorced twice. Big difference, 5.8% rather than 1.5%. So we're looking at almost a 4 times greater chance of being depressed if you've been divorced twice. If you cohabitate with someone or have been divorced once, then you're 4-5% likelihood of depression. And the folks who've never been married, about 2.5% depression. So you're better off not getting married than you are getting into a bad marriage. But the very best thing you can do is find a partner who makes you happy. Other things that make you happy, good friends. Oh, the value of a good friend. Turns out graduating college makes people significantly happier. Spirituality or religious beliefs make people happier. Feeling gratitude makes people happier. Serving others makes people happier. Notice on this list, there's nothing about buying things for yourself. It's giving to others, feeling gratitude for what you have and giving to others. These are things that make people happy. That's it on happiness. Come right back and we'll start talking about sex, gender, and sexual orientation.